What's going on, everyone? It's Fivehead, and today I'm going to be showing you how I make acoustic guitar loops, starting from recording the loops all the way to mixing it down. So let's jump right into it. But first, I'd like to plug in my new loop kit that just dropped in Cash Global called Memories. This loop kit contains 20 guitar loops, 5 of them acoustic, 15 electric, and as you'll hear, it's in the style of Ian Dior, Lil Peep, acoustic MGK, Juice WRLD, all that good stuff. So I'm just going to preview a few of the loops from the kit. So there you have it. That's what to expect coming from the kit. If you like what you hear, feel free to cop it down below at cashglobalkits.com. Link will be in the description. Anyways, back to the video. So let's break down what you'll need for this process. Obviously, you'll need an acoustic guitar. I recommend getting something that sounds really nice because that's going to reflect the quality of your loops. And also, make sure that you're using a fresh set of strings straight from the package right onto the guitar. That'll also dramatically impact the quality of the sound of your loops. The next few things you'll need, and these are completely optional but highly recommended, is a capo, and this is going to be for if you want to change key. You don't want to just be stuck in the same range the entire time. And the next thing you'll need, and this is pretty important, so I would say it's even more important than the capo, is a fret wrap. This is meant for muting the strings when you're recording, especially leads. The fret wrap prevents any strings from ringing out. The final thing you'll need is a mic for recording. This right over here is an Octava MK12. This is really good for recording acoustic instruments. It's around $200, but if you like to get something a little bit cheaper, I'd also recommend a SM57. It's about $100 cheaper than this one. If you like to hear the difference between the two, I'd recommend checking out this A/B comparison video of the two mics by Crash Course Recordings. And the video will be linked down below in the description. So that's pretty much it for gear. To break it all down, you'll need a good sounding acoustic guitar, fresh set of strings, very important. Optional stuff can be a capo or the fret wrap, but highly recommended, and a good sounding mic for recording. So your next step is getting ready to record. You'll want to set up your mic roughly 6 inches away from the guitar hole, and you'll want the mic facing parallel. Now, the gear you're using, or at least the gear I'm using right now, pretty good gear, so it'll sound good regardless, but you'll just want to make sure that the mic is capturing the sound of the guitar as much as possible. So that is the recommended setup. So as for the signal on your interface, make sure while you're recording that your light isn't on red, and red means it's peaking. See, that right there is fine, it's in the green. What you don't want is, because then it starts clipping, and you don't want it to clip. You want enough headroom for your tracks. Now for strumming especially, you'll want to lower your gain a bit, because it's really high velocity. But when you're playing single notes, you may want to turn up the gain just quite a bit because you're not strumming the guitar as hard. It's easier going, as you can see. You can even turn up just a little bit. And again, to emphasize this, you wouldn't use the same gain setting when it comes to strumming, because then you get clipping. So adjust. Perfect. All right, so now that we have everything set up, let's go into FL and start recording. For this video, we're going to be working at FL because that's what we use over here in Cash Global. And I'm just going to record a simple riff to start with. So we're setting the BPM around 183. And now I'm just going to record the riff. Cool, I've recorded that. Now for the main riff, you'll want to record everything you just recorded, but again. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Awesome. So now we have two separately recorded tracks of the exact same riff. What we're going to do here is we're going to pan one track left and then the other one right. So that way we get a wide, huge sounding stereo effect with the guitar. Great, so it sounds pretty good dry. As you can see in the tracks, nothing's peaking. There's a lot of headroom, so it's looking good and it's sounding good. Next thing we're gonna do is record another layer over it. We're gonna record some sort of harmony. Now for the layer, I'm going to keep it mono, just because I think that sounds good. I don't really want this part to be wide sounding, so we're just going to keep it mono. But let's hear everything together. Cool. So far so good. Mixing's not quite there. This track seems to sound a little bit louder than the rhythm, but we're gonna fix that later. And then the last part is another layer, which is gonna be the high leads. So I'm gonna go ahead and record that. All right, cool. We got all our layers. Awesome, everything sounds great. All right, now that we have all the recording done, we're now gonna go ahead and mix everything down. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these two separate tracks I recorded, these two mono tracks, to make one stereo. So let's route it. Track two, and that way it's on one track. Then we're gonna go ahead and Edison, press record. Cool. Now we have one stereo to work with. Now we're going to route that into the same track. And we can get rid of Edison now. Now the next layer we're going to route into another track. So track 3. Same with the lead. Alright, now we're going to mix it down. So the first thing we want to do is just EQ it. We're going to EQ it, get rid of the frequencies or add frequencies, just adjust accordingly. So we can see that the frequencies here are kind of loud, especially right in this range, the 145 range. So we're going to go ahead and turn that down. And then we're gonna do a low cut around here as well. We don't need all that low range, but don't low cut it too much because we still want some body in the sound. Before, after, sounding much better. I'm gonna go ahead and then just decrease some spots that I feel like can use some louder frequencies. That sounds good. Yeah, around here makes it sound more present and lively. Alright, so before, after. Sounds great. Now I'm not hearing any annoying frequencies pop up that we need to get rid of, so I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. And the next thing we wanna add is compression. And a really good plugin I'd recommend using for this is CLA Unplugged. There's also other good CLA plugins that you can use for compression. For example, the CLA 2A is a really good compressor here. It's a really good compressor, but it's completely optional. Either one of these two will do the trick. I'm gonna stick with CLA Unplugged for demonstrational purposes, and because it just has a lot more presets we can work with. So I'm gonna go ahead and just flip through the presets and pick out which one I like the best. This one sounds nice. Crazy reverb and delay, so let's just take that off. These are the, I mean, you could see it right here, but these are the reverbs and this is the delay. We'll get to that last. These are 3 types of compression options for this plugin. You got the push, which is really squishy sounding. It's like the most compressed sounding. And then you got spank, which is kind of in the middle, and then wall, which is the most open sounding. For strumming, I personally prefer the spank option, so I'm gonna go with that. And then after that, I adjust the input settings, which is pretty much like the gain knob on an amp. And then I push the signal until it starts to hit red. You don't want to push it too hard because then it just sounds kind of shitty. Like that sounds too much. So you want to do it when it's like slightly hitting the reds. Don't be afraid if it starts hitting the reds where the huge peaks are, like around here, because all the reds are doing is just flattening that peak. But yeah, I like the way this is sounding, so I'm just going to leave it at that. You can also adjust the frequencies with this plugin as well, but we already did that with the Pro Q3 plugin, so we're just going to skip that. And then the last and final step when it comes to mixing down an acoustic guitar track is the reverb. And that's going to be pretty much the ambience of your sound. That's going to make it sound lively and roomy. You could use the reverbs that come with CLA Unplugged, but I personally prefer using a separate reverb, like Guala Vintage Reverb, which is what I'm going to use right now, because there's a lot more options you can adjust, and you can just be more specific with what you want. So what I do is I leave it alone. I just open up the plugin the way it is, and I select the default setting, and I would adjust the knobs with the mix all the way up, so you just hear the reverb on its own, and you don't hear the dry signal. As we can hear, that sounds a little too big. It sounds like a coliseum or something, so we're gonna just narrow down the size of that room. We're gonna do that by adjusting the decay and the pre-delay. And we can also hear that that low end is kind of boomy. It's kind of like sounding, so we're just gonna go ahead and get rid of some of that low end. Around there sounds nice. And then as for the high cut, we're gonna do the same. Take some of the high end away. Alright, so that's sounding pretty good. And then next and final step is adjusting the mix. I like to stick around like 25%, but it also depends on what you're playing exactly and what you're going for. So this part is personal preference. I like to make it so it's not too wet, but it's not completely dry either. So around that 25 to 30% range is much preferred. So before, dry as hell, after. And there you go. There you have a mixed down acoustic guitar track. Now we're going to apply that same step with the rest of the tracks. So to save time, And I also prefer you doing this on your own as well. Just save everything you did and apply it to the other tracks. Now we're going to work with the harmony track. Pull up the exact same presets we just added. And hear how it sounds. It's a little loud, we're going to turn it down. I also recommend going back to the compressor and adjusting the different settings here to make sure it sounds the way you want it to, because this is a different type of riff that we're listening to. We're listening to like single note playing versus this track, which is strumming. So the compression setting may sound a bit different. I personally like the push preset a lot more than the spank. It sounds a lot more squished and condensed. And then adjust the input, as I mentioned. Sounding pretty good. Then the reverb you may want to adjust as well, but I'm kind of liking the way this sounds, so I'm going to leave it alone. And one thing you want to add with mono tracks, and this is specifically for mono tracks only, is adding an imager. I personally prefer using an ozone imager. In my opinion, this is probably the best one on the market. And I know there's a lot of presets you can go through, and it'll give you options to adjust the wideness for like the higher frequencies, the middle, low, but personally I prefer just sticking to the default one. And what this plugin does, it basically just widens your sound. So right here we have just a very narrow mono sounding track. We're going to use this switch right here to adjust the wideness. As we can hear, it's nice and wide now. You don't want to make it too wide where it sounds kind of flattened out and weird. There's no specific number I'd recommend adjusting it to. Just follow your ears with this one. That's sounding pretty good. So let's hear that before and after. Mono, very centered sounding. After, nice and stereo, nice and wide. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and save this preset as well, and we're going to use that for the lead and then adjust accordingly. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good. We're just going to want to adjust the input sensitivity. But yeah, I like the push setting on this one as well. That's sounding pretty good. And then the wideness is sounding good and the reverb is sounding good as well. As I've stated, you may want to go back and adjust the settings according to your track and according to what you record. But you don't always have to. It just depends. Depends on what you're playing. So now everything is mixed down. We just have to level everything out now. So we're going to start with the first track. And now I'm going to unmute track by track and then adjust accordingly. Second track. Next track. Turn it down a little. There you have it. Now you know how to record and mix down acoustic guitar loops. And if you like what you saw, if you like more tutorials from me on how to do more guitar stuff, feel free to comment down below and let me know. So thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you in the next video.